Let's look at this question. How do you manage homeschool kids in different stages? 5-year old, 3-year old, and 1-year old. Well, the first thing uh, Jody's going to tell you is uh, you don't have to worry about 3-year olds and 1-year olds.
And not terribly about the 5-year-old,
right.
But
Go ahead.
no, Fred's right. I mean, obviously, what you're needing to do when that with that oldest is start working with them on some school stuff when the other two are either napping or the baby's napping and the other one's playing quietly in a room, but or quietly in the room you're in. I think you just ease into it. You try to I know we always promote schedules, but when you've got little ones like this, you have to grab the opportunity of this is nap. The 1-year-old's still napping in the morning hours. The 3-year-old might need to be, have some quiet time things to do during that time. And that's when you start working with the 5-year-old, primarily on handwriting and reading, and memorizing the math facts. So I I'd say just don't stress about it. You're going to get there. But at this point, you're going to have to make use of the times of nap times. At least I did. And teaching the little ones to play quietly, either with you or alone.
I want to add something a little different here, but you really want to learn to treat all your kids the same by treating each one differently. Because they're unique individuals and they're different ages. So imagine, run out ahead, and let's say there's still cars and we're still driving them. At 16, your 5-year-old will be eligible to get a driver's license. But the 3-year-old, who would then be 14, will not be able to, right? And the 1-year-old, who would then be 2, 3 years younger, 12, won't be able to. And we took that orientation to heart because this happens all your life. You go to college and you're suddenly a freshman. You go into a job and you're in the mailroom. You're the new person. Everything you go through in life has that thing where age and skill has its privileges. And so, in understanding this particular game, what you want to do is teach your children that that's okay. That's a thing. So,
I'm sorry, I was about to sneeze.
So, so like with our kids, they had different bedtimes because of different ages, and maybe not at this kind of age, but really sort of, and especially as they got older, that age has its privileges. You get more mature, you're older, you're bigger, and we give you more responsibility. That's the way the game goes. The reason that's important is it allows you to think clearly about what you're doing with these different kids at these different ages, 5-year old, 3-year old, and 1-year old, that it's a different game with each of them. And eventually they get to where it's more or less the same game. By the time everybody gets, what would you say, 7th grade, 6th grade, maybe something like that.
Well, once
everybody can read, they all have math, we have math time, reading time, whatever.
Then we're all sitting down together doing, this is our math time, this is our writing time, this is our reading time.
But even then, in those stages, some of them, even when they got old enough to do all that, we would let the older ones, we experimented some with letting the olders with some things go off alone and study, right? Just like with us, their senior year, they had no curfew. Rather than get in trouble while they're at home, then on the field trip that God's going to put them on, the next year out of the house or so, if they're leaving at 18, depends on the situation. But that understanding of as you age, it's different, allows you to get it into the system, and you don't let the little ones think, oh, they're special because they're older. No, the older one is special in the older person's way, and you're special in your way, and you're special in your way, and your time will come. There will be a day that'll happen. But this is how all of life works. It continually has that game. So I think that mindset will help with exactly what Jody was sharing. So somebody didn't catch what I said. Let's see.
Oh, it was just about where you thought they lived.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. So she clarified.
Got it. All right. Finally, we're able to see this.
We got
We got
California and
people in
Ohio
Arizona. We
and
got people, well, that's the didn't catch, in the tri-state area. We've got Nevada and Arizona. We've got San Jose. Finally able to send this.
yeah,
Yeah, sorry about all that. I think
technology.
that was our fault. Um, so let's keep rolling. Um, here's one. Somebody just put in. Like I said, if you got a question, throw it out here because I'm very free to say I don't know. So you can't ask me anything that bothers me. My 11-year-old daughter is inattentive ADHD. Um,
Severely.
well, I'm sorry. I was processing inattentive ADD in my head versus inattentive ADHD. So I was just working in my mind through that. Severely seems to be ODD, uh, oppositional defiant disorder, as well. Natural consequences don't seem to work. She'll spend all day putting off writing one scripture verse. All right. So she's 11. Now, is she on any medication at all, or she had any diagnosis? Um, have they any therapy or coaching? I want to know what kind of I'm working with here, right? Or what I'm trying to think about.
Have you always had her in homeschool, or has she gone to outside of homeschooling? Just curious. That's tough though.
Yeah. So here's part of what we know about. I mean, uh, attention deficit is a problem, but it's probably a little misnamed just in its history. It's more like an overabundance of attention, but just to different things. And so this inattentive orientation, um, it's more about. I guess what you're saying is she's more daydreamy than active. Like there's a certain version that gets hyper and their body moves. It's an outside world thing. They want to move around, and others have the similar thing, but it's internal, and so they're off daydreaming about other things and what they're focused on. So generally, reward structures in this game, there are a couple of things. One, criticism tends to uh, intensify emotion. What you want to think of with this kind of thing, ADHD, is it's like the analogy is that they have a race car, their mind's racing. It's a race car, Ferrari, but they have bicycle brakes. So stopping this thing is really tough, right? And criticism tends to exaggerate the emotional stuff because they go from like a Ferrari can go zero to 60 in 3 seconds, 3.2 some odd seconds. So if if that's what's going emotionally, then they can get ramped up really quick. And because it's an immediate, I need something new, I need something exciting, and interesting, dopamine levels, whatever. They are not motivated exactly by long term things. Generally, what tends to work better is a consequence where they're losing something that they want or have, losing some time with it. So, part of what I want to know about your 11-year-old daughter is what does motivate her? I don't quite natural consequences don't seem to work. Well, I don't know what you mean by natural consequences, but natural consequences normally be she doesn't learn anything and she can't get employed. Unnatural consequences are what we parents put on them. So we discipline them as a consequence, for what you mean, of what they did. And so they can get negative or positive, one way or the other. In general, what you're looking for is something that motivates them, that they like to spend time doing, and giving them, you get this much time. But for every 10 minutes, 15, whatever, if you don't do your stuff, you lose this much time. Wouldn't take it all away, but just much less. They like computer, like feeding the horse. I don't know what it is, but that's the kind of thing we would want to look at in terms of that motivation. The ODD, I mean, some of this descriptor is probably somewhere where you might need some help because those are that's a pretty tough combination. Um, So I think I finally got the what
Yes,
else?
you did say daydreaming, and then yeah, this one,
Where
what you
I
this.
was just putting it up. It
Yeah,
just came through.
I know. I just
Yeah. And you're right. I think it's misnamed. It seems to be a motivational deficit disorder. Yeah, motivational is part of it. Part of it is just wanting novelty, a challenge, or something different. And it's about getting a dopamine spike, what normally people have. So Adderall 5 half dose because any more seems to agitate her. Helps some, but it's no miracle medicine. Um, Right. And so is that I assume that's XR. Okay, so it's extended. Yeah. The medicine isn't a cure, just doesn't cure. You still have to learn skills. You have to learn things to do. So we go back to this issue of what she does. And like I said, we're toying here. I'm trying to use a common sense understanding. This is not my specialty, not common sense, but hopefully a logical, same thing. Not my specialty. If I had these things in combination, I think I went to the wrong one. In combination, I'd be seeking some kind of help, at least advice and understanding because of this combination. But we've got something like uh, spending all day putting off writing one scripture verse. So the way Jody and I would understand this is no child would ever have all day to do anything. That wouldn't be a thing we'd do. They would have a deadline, to write one scripture verse. If their scripture writing time is probably 15 minutes, I mean, I don't know how long the verse is, but it's 15 minutes. And when they're not done, that time's over. And they have to then go to it later in the afternoon. It'll become homework. Assume you do it early in the day. If we give anybody forever, they tend to take forever. So everything you do needs a time limit. And this is one of the things with ADHD. A time box, a time limit creates a challenge and they can focus better. We know one of our kids we've discovered had this kind of thing, and then we didn't know what we were doing, but we figured it out. And having a time limit was a magic piece of it. So you need a time limit, something they control. And if they don't get it done, you go to the next thing, go to the next thing, and then they have homework. But this thing about letting a child just sit there and play it out, it like rewards them. And in a way, it reminds me of my concern with babies that you let cry. Like you fed them, you powdered them, no pins are poking them, they're fine, life's good. It's just nap time. They got a little extra energy, so they're complaining a little bit. Well, if you let them complain and you wait 5 minutes and get them up, then you've trained them to cry for 5 minutes. And then if you do 10 next time, and then you go, I'm committed, you can get it to 30 minutes or 4 because it's a reward structure for the baby. So what you're trying to figure out how to do is set up a limit and have a consequence. And ideally the consequence is good, which is, if it's like, let's say they like video games and you let them play an hour at night. So look, for everything you don't get done, you're going to lose 10 minutes, let's say. I don't know what the steps would be or what needs to be done. Don't get your verse done, 10 minutes. Don't get your chore done, 10 minutes. Don't get or it could be 5, but 10 is probably better. Don't get your math done, 10 minutes, whatever. Now, they don't do their math, but they can do it in the afternoon. If they get it done there, they get their time back. If they don't get it finished there, and even that needs to be a limit, they don't get it. That orientation is real concrete for the day, and it can tend to help them focus on what they're trying to get done because part of this is a training for themselves to learn how do I bring my attention back. That's what we talked about in our focus course. So they've got to learn to bring their attention back on something and bring it back on something and bring it back. Getting distracted is somewhat normal. All humans can do that. That's how we drive, looking around, but we get back on the lane. So that would be I think
Now,
the core.
I
What do you want
think
to add?
too, just to make that even just to reinforce that, make that if say like you did the time thing, and you have an hour, and then you're gonna take away. I would actually get a container and it has something concrete in it that represents each 10 minutes, ping pong balls, whatever. And 2 containers and it gets taken away, they see it decreasing, especially for this age and younger. They can actually watch it decreasing. And like Fred said, okay, well, if you did do it then during homework time or whatever, however the kid get put back in, but really it's gone.
Well, and all this is going to be experimental. So you want to communicate that. We're trying to figure it out. I mean, I'd be saying to a kid, I love you. I'm for you. You're awesome. But you can't go through life doing this. And what we're going to do is figure out how to solve it. And so here's an experiment. We're going to try this. We'll see how that works. Then we're going to try this. But eventually, we're going to figure it out because you can't go through life doing this. Your life will be miserable. And all it is a
Right.
verse. You know, I don't know why that's a problem. Maybe we do it different. We got 10 minutes and 10 words in a verse. Hey, you got 1 minute to write that word down. Like,
Yeah,
really?
or for a week, you could say, okay, if you do your verse on time every day this week, we'll go get ice cream or whatever it is, and then I'll go back to if it is the ODD and all those, seeking help for that. It changes the game a little bit there. So, but try experiment with different things.
Yeah, and there are some good thoughts coming out here. So let's see. Um, where's the jumping jacks? Yeah, so I'm going to skip around a little bit. So Janelle throws out, I try to meet my kids where they are. When I notice kids being more distracted, I have them do jumping jacks or jumping jacks. That may be different. It helps. Yeah. So some activity can help. Getting a break can possibly help. The time limit can help. Someone else, who is this EB that we're talking to?
Yeah, and then
Yeah. So EB says, great idea about seeing time go down. Also love the idea of telling her we're going to figure this out. Yeah, you've got to do that. You say this is a given. You're going to figure it out, but
Yeah.
we got to figure it out. In fact, you might ask her for ideas. I used to do that to kids. What ideas do you have? What
Right.
punishments or what rewards? What would motivate you? What can I give you that would motivate you to get this verse done? Doesn't mean you have to take it, but you can at least find
Yes.
out, because it really doesn't scare me how okay she is with not learning. Yeah, it does. Yeah, yeah. So it's a battle, but she's still got to learn. And if I were working with it, I'd look at her whole day and see what she's doing and what motivates her. Because mostly you're trying to figure out how to connect to something internal that makes a huge difference.
Right.
Um, all right, so all right, love it. Gonna ask her for her help. So let me get back here. I'm gonna get lost. Now my ADHD is gonna mess up. They're gonna get her hyperfocus. Yeah, hyperfocus running it. So I didn't mean for this to be ADHD day, but you're probably gonna encounter some of this some way or another. And the principles are still the same for everybody. She can get hyperfocus. So the tendency they can do hyperfocus um, and get real intense about something. And it's a different kind of ditch. It's sort of what throws you off, because ADHD doesn't mean they can't focus. It means they're easily focused on a variety of things. But when they get hyper focused with a challenge, cortisol, what I don't know what else is going on, fear, whatever. It looks like they could do it all the time, but it's what you're wanting them to learn to do is how to bring their attention back onto something, and criticizing them for being inattentive is not the way to do it. It's just getting back. They want to learn that skill, that orientation, that way to do it. And there are some things they can't do. They need to get up. They need to switch subjects. You might even try that as something I would try, which is let's break math down. Instead of an hour or two, let's break it down into 30 minutes, switch to reading, switch back. Something like that may allow a different kind of shift in their brain chemistry to do it. So there's a thought. There, were you going to say something?
No, I'm just saying Janelle's got a lot of. We are out of order. Sorry, guys.
I
We'll
know.
get to them
I'll
all.
get to them all.
All right, Janelle.
Yeah. So, 11-year-old girl. She's highly gifted, but similar with yours that way. I wear out from constant reminder consequences. Doesn't always work. Am I doing consequences right? Yeah. So the way we understand doing these things, yeah, if you're caught reminding and you're part of the solution, that's a problem. What you want the person to do is to go, I'm. You're really artificially creating consequences like the world will teach them. And so the way to do that is you want to figure out what you want, like really what do you want. So let's say um, you want well, let's just take the one verse. You want them to write one verse in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So you get a picture of that, and then you start asking the question, what that would be like, what would it look like? We're talking about 15, 20 words, I don't know. I mean, we're literally talking about writing something down, right? Isn't that right?
Copy, yes,
Copying
just copying it. Yeah.
scripture, and it may be a paragraph or something like that. But then it's just a word. So then the issue would be a word, and it'd be really weird if a person can't write a word, regardless of what's going on. But in doing that, you want to say, how can I how am I encouraging this defiance? See, I'd be looking at that and say, what is it that I'm encouraging? Um, like, if my constant reminding is part of the system of how they get things done, I'm encouraging them, I'm rewarding them not to take it on themselves, but to wait for me to remind them. Like if a child, older child, a sixth grader, couldn't brush their teeth without me saying, brush your teeth, then I'm part of that structure and I've rewarded them and taught them that the process of getting their teeth brushed is to not remember, wait on daddy to say it, then brush your teeth. And so I'd be a part of the system. So what you want to do is figure out how am I rewarding it. And then when you get the picture, I want to do a verse in 15 minutes or a passage. You're going to ask, okay, how can I encourage them to do that and discourage everything else? And that takes brainstorming because you got to know the child. But uh, understanding that what you're up to is, I want to discourage whatever I've been doing to reward it. That's not the game. Like with the toothbrush, it might be, hey, and when you do 5 nights in a row on your own, here's the game. You're going to brush your teeth before bed and you're going to tell me that you brush your teeth. And when you do that 5 nights in a row, I'm going to buy you junk food to ruin your teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna do a dance a jig. I'm gonna do 100 push-ups. I don't know what would turn that child on, but something that would be really quite cool. But it's got to be 5 nights in a row, and they got to tell you. So it's a very specific type of instruction, but that's the way you want to play the game. What would be a reward, and it could be what's a consequence, as we talked earlier. But you want to start thinking with those kind of questions. How can I encourage what I want to see and discourage everything else? How can I write as many? How can I encourage what I want to see and discourage everything else? Dependent on getting a clear picture of what you want to see. So I know I'm out of order. Somebody gave us a heart, so that's cool. Thank you, Janelle. Let's see. Uh, Daughter's still hyper focused. Talked about that. I try to meet my kids where they are. That was awesome. Great idea about seeing time go down. We got that one. Um, Keep a visual chart for what they do. RT helps. I have 7 children, laugh out loud, 4 of ADHD.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they're kin to somebody, uncles, dads, you know, something like that. Um, yeah, so charts, this is what we know. I've done this with fundraising. I'm sorry, a thermometer works. You may not like them for a church building or a fundraiser for a new,
where they
new,
color in the little
new
red, and it's going
uniform.
up, up,
Yeah,
up.
I'm sorry, because it's feedback loop. It's a
Yeah.
measure. You get more of what you measure. In fact, on the verses, a chart of how many words were written every day would be pretty good. Each day, how many words in the Bible time were written, and you can start keeping up with them. 0, 1, 2, whatever. Maybe it gets 20, but that reward structure, that feedback structure, really tends to help. All right, we're catching up. We're catching up. What we started doing was having my child making suggestions to help the challenge instead of her tell her. Well, yeah, and that's right. You can engage them and say, "What would you do? What would help?" And sometimes they have ideas. Yeah, ask for
Good.
ideas. Awesome. Uh, first time homeschooling. I'll get the code. Any suggestions for no cost curriculum for fourth and eighth grade till I get back to work? Single mom of 8 children. Live in RV. Found you searching homeschool in Texas. First week homeschooling. Yeah. So, uh, 8 children, cost curriculum for fourth and eighth grade. So, are you saying you have an eighth grader and a fourth grader, and everybody else, you got 6 people under that? That's what it sounds like.
Wow.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, in ramping up in your circumstance, the most important thing you can do, some of this depends on where the kids are, but um, if you have access to the internet, which I have evidence you might, there are a lot of things online, books and all, that they could at least read on a screen. There are public libraries. Um, Giving them a diet of books that are kind of classical, and there's some good lists online. And if you were to go to our Facebook page and throw it out, people would give you a good list of books they can get age appropriate. And I'd say reading is going to be the most important thing for them to be doing. So having them reading, but I'd say math too is in there. And I don't know exactly what I would do about math, but I bet a library probably has stuff like that too, that would be, in the meantime, with whatever level they are, giving them an opportunity to um, um, stay up or start learning some things in math. So you can probably, I know you can find some math books that'd be appropriate. They're not yet curriculum, but they're still getting their mind to work mathematically. I think would be huge. And the other thing, I'd certainly have them write every day. That would be a strategic thing. So they're just writing for 30 minutes about anything they want to, and you give them some feedback and maybe how to say it a little better, or spelling corrections, just any kind of that feedback loop there. That would get them going. If you just got reading, writing, and math of any kind that's stretching them, moving them up a little bit, uh, you're going to buy a lot of time and get their brain active and get them used to the pattern.
Yeah, I know that says she's using Khan Academy. I was thinking about that, and that some of her kids are out of the house.
Well, hang on.
So
So what we want to do is we want to put these up there,
okay.
so you can talk about it. So where am I going?
Well, I'm looking at these 3, so I don't know where they are on your side.
Yeah. So maybe everybody can see those too, but I was wanting to get. All right, some are adult. Okay, well that helps. Moved on to college, and what have I got here? Need at the moment is fourth and seventh. Okay, and have a laptop. Using Khan. You got Khan. You got Project Gutenberg has all kinds of books and all out there. But there's something still about holding a physical book. So, you know, getting a list, getting some things, some classics, age appropriate, things they like that are good. But any kind of reading is going to be pretty strategic, and that'll buy you some time. And then a curriculum. You know, we use Robinson curriculum, which by and large is not. I mean, there's some complexity if you're going to print books or buy books, etc. But a lot of these you can find online, or if you get today, you can get a Kindle. You can get these books and download them. But right now, with whatever's going on, there's a little more to this story. But you want to get them stable, and I'd say into a routine where they're doing math and writing and reading every day. And then as you figure out, how to ramp it up, there's a lot in this online community of people that can really help you. And I even suspect in your area there are systems and ways you can be helped. But I'd start definitely with the library. If you go to a church, I'd start there.
Well, that's what I was thinking too. In your area, homeschool groups or church at church, you might find somebody that, oh yeah, we do Saxon and we're not using that book this year. You can certainly borrow. We loaned ours out to some people before when we had,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
So
and
there might
even
be
more, we've even taken in some kids. See, like
some.
if I mean, you're not in our area, we're not homeschooling, but had you been in our church and friends, and I knew all this, it'd probably be pretty easy for us to say, why don't you get those two kids to come in uh, and
Join
just
ours.
join ours, and they can do our stuff. There are probably some people that can do that to help build a transition. But again, your circumstance is going to be part of it. My 13-year-old tested genius on some areas. Yeah, we've had that before. And he's high on spectrum, but he thinks he knows more than everyone else. He is hard to teach. How can I manage to actually teach him? So, very important. As another genius who knows more than everybody else, I can weigh in on this. Um, the uh, the trick is you want to resign from being his teacher. You can have a formal ceremony and a cake if you'd like. I would highly recommend it. What you want to do is commission him to become his own teacher because he's going to have to teach himself. He doesn't know everything. Uh, his 13-year-old test him as genius. Get him a copy of the beginning of Infinity. That'll dramatically test him, and he probably won't be able to understand some of it, so it might humble him. The beginning of the Infinity by Deutsch. I thought for a fact it was sitting right here.
Well, I don't know.
Brooks has my copy. I have it on Kindle. Sorry. But a book like that, and it has some fascinating stuff about atheism, religion, and other stuff, and it's fine. This guy's really honest and criticizes everybody, but you can challenge him with stuff like that. But mostly, you just want him to understand. Great, get through your work, get faster. Let's get to a level. At some level, he's going to slow down. You know, um, so I would get him to become his own teacher, and that means he's going to have to read and stretch himself. That it's not about what he knows; it's going to be about what he's done. I don't care if you know Romeo and Juliet. Have you read it when he's older, or Julius Caesar? So we're going to go through this curriculum, and you're going to knock this stuff out, and you know we want you to develop socially and some other areas too. But there's this stuff we're going to take you through to get you ready. But I want you to learn to teach yourself. That doesn't mean you won't help them. You're the chief learning officer. You're going to coach them. You're going to challenge them. You're going to hold them accountable, and you're going to measure what they get done. And that's the big thing. Number of pages read a day, books accomplished, math done, etc. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just in areas that he's just great in, let him take off. No limit on those. But yeah,
yeah, and let him the stuff that challenges and fascinates him. He can do outside of class. Get school done. If you're a genius, teach yourself what you need to teach today. Get it done faster, and you can have the rest of the day. And
build a robot.
Yeah, do whatever you're going to do. I'm loving the conversation right now because I believe my 5-year-old has ADHD. He's easily distracted, always fidgets, and I'm always having to repeat myself when it comes to regular daily activities. Could be, also could be a boy.
A 5-year-old boy.
Yeah, a 5-year-old boy, which God says wiggle, and you say don't, and who's going to win that debate? God wired him for that. But yeah, learning, just again, the discipline is when you itch but don't scratch. You can still learn things. You can still learn to catch yourself, how to catch that emotion that's jumping, and let's breathe a little bit and rethink it some and reload. Yeah, you did. Look, why don't you, I tell you what, do 3 math problems or 3, work on your math facts, or I don't know what a 5-year-old's doing. But do this little thing, and then you can go run, do that, come back. So learn just any of that process of learning. You have the power to bring your concentration back on this point. If you look in our videos, there's a thing on focus that we mentioned. Never mind our course on focus, but that'll be a good start. Love y'all's insight, especially telling kiddos that they can't have one best friend. Yeah, we talked about that a week ago, but they can have 3. Their whole world needn't fall apart because they're fussing with one friend. And that's a really important point, just to stress it if you hadn't heard this. one friend creates jealousies. I learned this from a guy named Fenelon. He was a tutor to king's kids in France in the 1600s something. And he talked about this, but it generates jealousies and conflict. So trying to orientate yourself to, encourage you. You have several best friends, but not let's have one that you lock into, because then it's going to be fight, jealousy, and who can get in, etc.
Mhm.
Yeah. Exactly. How am I encouraging this defiance, and how am I rewarding this lack of doing? Exactly the thing they've been asked to do. Love the idea of them telling me they brushed their teeth 2 times in a row, 5 times,
Yeah.
5 times, not two. And, and
What?
and let me tell you why I'm saying five. Is you want to do it enough to where it can become a more comfortable pattern for them, and you can really prove they did it. A couple of times is good, but I'd go for more. What are you gonna say?
Yeah. Just to clarify, each night. Hey, mom, dad, I just brushed my teeth, letting you know. Next night, hey, mom, dad, I brushed my teeth, letting you know. Then
Yeah.
when that happens 5 nights in a row.
Yeah, I did that. One of our kids moved the water out back one day to water the yard, and I came out and water spread all over the porch, all over my phone, my computer, all my papers. Right. So I didn't get that upset. We dried it out. Everybody survived, but I went through the process. They turned it on, and they moved it, turned it on, went inside. So we need a new process, which is turn it on, move it, turn it on, see where it's spraying, then go inside. And I said, look, tell me when you've done that. You're not, we've got to learn this. Tell me when you've done it every time for 5 times. And once he had done that and told me, it just became a habit. I didn't have to reward him or anything. People need that kind of instruction so they can learn it. They haven't figured out the process, but doing a number of times shows them, oh, I can do it. I get it. Um, Also, something skip. We'll get to it in a second. Sorry. Um, what are your thoughts on learning styles? My son loves music, so he's very much an auditory learner in that area. Should I incorporate music in every subject? I'm pretty sure if you do the research, this is not a thing. There's not a learning style. It was built out of a argument. This visual, auditory, kinesthetic system is tied to NLP, goes back to Bandler and some other folks. There's even a history prior to it, and it sounds good, but the fact is we're all auditory, visual, kinesthetic. Maybe you have a preference in sequence, but you can do them all, and you need to do them all. So the learning style thing. What's funny about that is the learning style takes care of itself. They just need to learn the thing. How they go about do it, will it be intuitive? So like I can study a chapter of a book, but I might go out of order. I would argue it's a better way to do it. I teach people how to do it, but you don't have to. Somebody else could read it through, just like getting term papers done. I did mine more last minute. Jody probably did hers 2 weeks before it was due. I don't know, but that style stuff will take care of itself. Getting things in motion. I mean, you got Montessori, but that's especially a younger game, but it's involving kind of all the senses. That's a little bit different conversation. Um, if your son loves music, that's great. But auditory can also be listening to lectures, literally reading out loud. So, like when we read something and we read it out loud, I would say if you read a passage out loud and then stop and picture what happened there and then describe it, you've kind of engaged everything. Even the kinesthetic stuff is in the visual game because there's motion. So I would worry less about learning style and more about learning. They'll figure out their style, but it's going to look pretty similar to everybody. And you're welcome to research that. But I'm really pretty confident. I've spent some time on it. That's not a thing. It sounds good, but in the long term, it turns out to be an excuse for someone to say, "Well, I don't read because I don't do this," and it's like, no, I don't think that's a thing. And I don't think it's a thing you want. You want them to be adaptable and flexible, you know. So it wouldn't be, well, I'm a swimmer, not a runner. So I just went, well, yeah, but sometimes you're going to need to run away from a fire. We're going to have to get your feet working on ground too. Some of our adult children moved to college. Where did that? Sorry. Yes, I need a moment. Fourth, am I behind?
Yes. I'm
About,
sorry we've been out of order today, guys.
yeah, it's a little
Um,
tricky system. I'm going to improve it very soon. All right. Wait, I've done a chart with rewarding them for listening the first time I call them per your recommendation. And when they get to 10 times, they get rewarded. They're intrigued and it's starting to work. That is awesome. And make sure it's experimental. So we're going to try this. Don't turn it, a principle embalms, a precedent embalms a principle. You don't want to turn it into something. You want to say, we're going to experiment. And so in 2 weeks, we're going to revisit, and it's probably what you did.
yeah.
But that's great.
Terrific.
And good. It intrigued them. I love it. Easy peasy is a free online homeschool curriculum for preschool through high school. Perfect.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, and I bet there are a number of things like that if you search
Google
for
but
things
if somebody
like
has
that.
a recommendation,
Well,
that's
yeah,
terrific.
just
Thanks
like
so
Kyle.
much.
Yep. Easy
Very
peasy.
helpful.
We're following your schedule from your gift video. Oh, good.
Good.
It worked for us. We tweaked it over time, but yeah. So what she's talking about, if you don't know, if you go to independenthomeschool.com, there's a couple hours of videos where we, 6 or so, broken up, share how we did it, or or what the game plan, what our
Assuming we
game
look
was.
a good bit younger in those videos.
You don't. Starting with writing, then reading, then math, more reading, more math. Good.
Yeah, breaking it up.
Yep. Awesome. I'd love to use Robinson as you both have used it and talk about, but need to get back to work. So this is all new. No problem.
Yeah.
I got you. Cheering for you. Thank you. I'll be more intentional incorporating that. Awesome. When I instruct the younger one, the older one constantly barges in and makes comments. I would send her to do her work in her room, but I feel the need of supervising her from distraction. Do you know what ages these were? What Jeannie was talking about?
I don't remember the ages.
Oh, I skipped something. Jeannie said, sorry, Jeannie, shall I separate them and have them work in a separate space? And, we've encountered some of this too. 3-year-old does to the older, but I guess that's normal for a toddler.
To interrupt.
Yeah. So when they get older, Jody would even put a board between two of the guys who distract each other. So there is that challenge, but chances are you need a little both, because kids do need to learn how to get work done even with noise around them, because things are going to be that way in life. Maybe not all the time. So some separate in your room, or engage the 3-year-old somewhere else, some together, but they need to learn to respect and work together. But demanding that of a 3-year-old or younger.
Yeah, the other one. How old was the other one? But it gets back to what Fred was saying.
5, 3, 2, I think.
The one that's not 3, the older one. No, just we're not going to do that. You're not going to interrupt me. You're not going to, for no reason. For no reason. We're going to stop doing this. This has become a bad habit. And I need you to do this. Stay focused. To be on your work, and unless you're bleeding or something, don't interrupt me while I'm dealing with 3-year-old. I just make it, what do you want? Make it clear to the child what you want. If there is a need for some kind of reward or consequence, put that in there. But sometimes it's just, hey, we've gotten a bad habit going here. You might not realize it, and it's really wasting my time and yours, and we're going to stop it. We're going to, we're going to not do this anymore. So let's work on that today. How's that going to look like? What does that look like? Oh, you think you need to interrupt me, but you really don't. So you wait.
Well, and on top of that, you can also practice it. We call it run that play till you get it right, which is literally, let's go do this. Come interrupt. And how do you interrupt properly? Put your arm on an elbow or something, not blab. And let's practice non-interrupting,
Yeah. Actually, you can run that play. Okay, we're going to pretend we're doing it the bad way.
Yeah.
And this is how I want
We
you
used
to
to
do
do
it, and
that.
this is how we're going to do it. And when you just
We
practice,
we did that with the
pretend.
kids. We played bad kid, good kid. You remember that? Bad kid. And all the kids, they whine and
Pretend like they're hitting each
pretend
other
like they're
and
hitting
stuff.
each other. Good kid.
Or hit each
And then they stop and be sweet. Be quiet.
So,
And I mean, we literally practice it just to get in their head that there's a distinction here. 5 times. Got it. Awesome. Younger 5-year does that too. Their 11-year-old says, yeah, we're humans. I forgot to mention my 11-year-old is getting tests for auditory processing. I feel like what she does come not being able to filter out sounds. I can ignore the sounds around her. Yeah, so that's an ADHD possibility too. So it's not audio processing is fair. That's its own thing. This is more like filtering. I understand what that means. Most of my life has always been very noisy. If I go in a restaurant, I hear every song. I tell people, I hear the conversation next door, I hear this. I got my thing going on in my head. And then I'm probably trying to talk to somebody. So that's its own challenge too. And again, it's learning to filter, to bring it back. There are things to work on hooking the brain up right, but I get it. It's a challenge, no doubt about it.
yeah, I've seen kids where they had the noise canceling headphones, which is a step, a help, but you are not going to do that through live. So it's still a
Yeah,
learning
and they
a
probably have some
growing.
whatever they tell you. They probably have some
Yeah,
exercises to do, but
that's
it's very similar. Even if you listen to music, have them listen to a song they like, and try to pick out the beat, pick out their you know wind instruments in it or the guitar part, and you can listen to this different parts, and it's just a matter of learning to or going out back and listening just for the birds or just for the wind. All those things, that's stuff to practice, and everything's hard before it's easy, and it's easy once you know how, or easier. So it's a matter of learning. You want to think about all this stuff as skill development, and they have a natural tendency in their brain to be distracted, but there's a skill development they can do to start learning how to bring some focus on it. I mean, a lot of the problem with all this stuff is you need scaffolding or structure around a person, so it makes it easier. My office for years, and it's I say my office for years. It's the same way in here. I've got a blackout screens up there. I have dark offices. I turn lights down so I can't see all the books and other things in my office because I'll look at them. So I get it structurally for me. I get the light focus on what I'm working on, and that tones down my temptation, if I could say it that way. There are other techniques I've developed, and that's part of what your child's going to have to do. They're going to have to figure out their own way of getting themselves focused, but you can put a structure around them that will helps.
Sure.
Blue noise, she says, is better. Noise canceling, probably right. The literature would say actually brown noise is probably better. I will put in the background. We would play. We try different things, but for me personally, I'll put in the background on I don't want to say her name. She'll talk to me. But Babbling Brook, and that Babbling Brook noise works for me just in the background low enough. A brown noise works too, but you can experiment. There's green noise, blue noise, white noise, but the brown and the studies
and
seem
the
to come up
classical
better.
music with certain beats. That's
Yeah, and
remember.
you gotta just see with people. Some people I can listen to blues and kind of concentrate, but other things will mess me up.
And also,
So this is just an example
yeah,
of
and
this.
here again, of course, try it, see what works for your children, experiment. But at some point, they're going to be out there at work or school or something where they can't have that going on. So and that we're not talking about 11-year. When they're older, we got to figure out how to cope with these things. I've actually seen, and I've got somebody that has them, but they hadn't tried them yet. Their child, these little earplug things that they don't plug up everything. They're just specifically to tone down some things.
I think that I've used earplugs.
I'm
and
seeing that a
can be
lot
helpful.
out there
Here,
now.
and we're about to go, but Jeannie points out my child auditory processing. She says she hears noise canceling, which seems insane, but the white, brown, or pink noise seems to help. So yeah, there you go. All right, gang, this was great. Send in more questions. I sadly did not get to the question that was
Somebody send
thrown
in-
at me, but I'll write this person back and we'll throw it out next week because it was a helpful question.
Thanks for your
So-
patience today.
And yes, exactly, Jody. So they got it. All right, bless y'all. Have an awesome weekend. It was fun. Please tell people, join, pass it on, etc.